Tiff and Rach here.
We are the Nobodies, and this is our podcast.
We would like to introduce and warmly welcome Tom Myers, author of Anatomy Trains, which is currently in the process of a 5th edition, Anatomy Cubed, Body Reading, and co-author of numerous other fascially focused publications. We don't want to get lost in the weeds of accolades, but suffice it to say, this man has been learning and practicing bodywork for the past 50 plus years, and this course that we've been taking is the offspring of said study and practice. We have had the great fortune to learn from the author and creator of this work himself. We give due credit to the lineage of teachers he learned from, including Dr. Ida Rolf, Moshe Feldenkrais, Buckminster Fuller, Louis Schultz, and many more. With all of this knowledge and education, some of the characteristics we find most endearing about this man are his approachability, his commitment to practicing what he preaches, his curiosity, and his willingness to admit when he's not been right about something. He has created a school and a craft where armor is neither required nor rewarded, and we are grateful we have been a part of it this year. Part of what helps us communicate passionately about this work is our own personal experience with it. We are trying to expose this work to a new audience, your everyday curious types. And with that, we wanted to share your experience.
Would you like to share anything to begin?
I don't know. Who am I talking to?
You're speaking to
A bunch of nobodies.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I'm not a nobody. I have a body. You have a body.
Yes. That is from the work of Michael Singer. Tiffany found that it was in Untethered Soul, and she sent that to me because we were looking for a place and time to create something about ourselves that is uplifting and not held to anything. Mm-hmm. So
yeah, well, we could go there to start, which is that in the modern world we are so held to time. We are so held to a particular form of time. Time is a funny medium, right? It's, you write the art of your life in time. There's no way around it. I think it was Alan Lightman who wrote time struggles forward with a weight on its back when you're rushing an injured child to the hospital or bearing the gaze of a neighbor wronged, but time flies when you're in the arms of a secret lover or something. You know, it's that we're all stuck into a particular kind of time in the internet era is something that I really look forward to getting back to my farm in Maine. It feels like I'm not just coming unstuck from the rapid pace of modern society, which I actually enjoy being out there, but that I can unstick myself in time in nature in a way that I'm not allowed to unstick myself in time in our everyday world.
Just as our audience may be new to you or not, what originally brought you to this work?
I grew up in New England, very much sort of guilty Protestant thing, very, very New Englandy. How can you be of service? And you have to be the smartest person in the world and then be of service and then not show that you're the smartest person in the world, but somehow manage to show that, all of those things that go on inside of you. So I knew that I didn't want that. I followed my parents' thing, and my parents were very liberal and open, so I had quite a wide range of things to do, but I was still following their story instead of creating my story. And it took until 3 or 4 years after college, and then I went, pushed my elbows out. And you have to understand that America was tipped. This is the early 70s, and America was tipped, and everything that was loose started rolling towards California. And I was on the East Coast, and I started rolling towards California and got as far as Boulder, Colorado, which is Boulder, California. Even in the early 70s, it was headed that way. And I ran into all the spiritual stuff, which I had run into as the Protestant church. Hymnals, the Bible was a big part of my study when I was young. I love the Bible, still do. And nobody knows it anymore, but it's an interesting book. So I went to college, and then I studied the Bible as history in the school that I went to, so I had quite a background in that kind of thing, but I'd never run, I'd heard about meditation, and people were talking about this, and people were taking drugs, so meditation was coming in there. It was all sort of Paisley and yoga thing. We didn't know too much about it then. We were just experimenting. But when I got to Colorado, I ran into this stuff and seriously Actually, you guys will experience, you'll like this story. It wasn't that I was seeking enlightenment or spirituality or I had a problem with my body or anything like that. I was lonely. I was out in Colorado. I was learning to fly an airplane, which was the only thing I could think of to learn to do.
Sounds fun.
And in an effort to get laid, started attending all these open houses because there was no internet in those days. So if you wanted to learn about Swami Satchidananda and yogic meditation, you had to go to the open house on Wednesday night. And but it was a great place to meet people. So I went to the open houses on Wednesday night and got introduced to all this spiritual stuff. And one of the groups, a thing called Eureka, it hardly exists anymore, but really got my attention. And so I stopped trying to learn to fly an airplane, and I took my patrimony, took all the money that I had and put it down on these weird me-decade, why are you spending your money on yourself? You're being so selfish. Shouldn't you be doing things for other people? That was the thing that I had to get over to actually get into myself. And then, of course, once you get into yourself, you come back and you're helping other people, and you're really helping instead of stroking your own ego somehow. So I highly recommend the trip inside for those guilty Jews, Protestants, and Catholics, all the children of the book who need to get over the guilt. But that was for me an opening into spirituality. But I'm a scientifically, skeptically oriented person, so I never felt the need to take on Hinduism or Buddhism or any other particular religion, but the technology of those religions in terms of meditation, body work, everything up to Wim Hof. I got to study, I was so lucky, I got to study with a lot of people back in the early days of, Moshe Feldenkrais. I was in the middle of studying with him when he died. I had just completed my advanced training with Ida Rolf when she left the planet, and Emily Conrad Daoud is no longer with us. And so there was a lot of those people that I got to study with in those days that I'm very pleased that I got that contact.
We're grateful too.
We are so grateful.
So what was your most recent experience receiving anatomy trained structural integration work? And what was the most impactful thing that you learned about yourself as a byproduct of that?
We had a student recently who came through the training, and she had a very, very troubled life, which included the Harrington rods being put in her, which is a double metal rod down either side of her back. So her body was seriously challenged both physically and psychologically from a very young age. And when they got through the training, they asked if they could do the series on me. Now, we have not completed this series yet, but we did the first 4 sessions of that series, and it was very impactful for me. Not that I learned so much about myself from the work itself, but that this person, I don't want to characterize them, but they could have been broken by what happened to them, and they're not. They still have this unbending spirit in the middle, and I just, so to feel this work that I've been given as a keeper of the keys for this, which I did not expect when I first started. That was not my vision. I'm going to start a school in this. That was not my vision at all. When I did start a school, I thought somebody needs to be the gadfly in this group, and so they'll just be the gadfly. And now here we are in structural integration, and we are one of the principal schools, if not the principal school of Ida Rolf's work, which is really just a surprise to me. And probably the people in the Rolf Institute who hear this are going to say, what? Then I passed that on to this woman, and it came back through this very delicate system, because I'm a pretty rugged system, and my work came through her delicate system and then back to me, and it was like hearing a musician play when you've taught them, and now they're beyond what you taught them. It was that kind of thing.
What a beautiful, happy accident this whole experience sounds like it's been for you.
Yeah.
You said she had Harrington rods, and you also used unbending in her description. And I was
that's true.
I liked that. Kind of as a segue to that, what has been your most memorable experience as a practitioner?
My most memorable experience as practitioners are the people with whom I just failed. Are absolutely, and I'm not saying that to be cute.
No.
That's absolutely the people whom I failed with or had fairly long therapeutic discussions with. You have heard me beat you about the heads and say, send people away after X number of sessions. And there are usually 2 or 3 people a year that I take on for long-term therapy, and they're going to be with me. We're not doing the series that I've taught you. We're doing something else. It usually is delving into something that's in their past or in the past. And I fancy that I'm the one that should do that with them, that it's going to be hard for them to find that elsewhere. So I take people on sometimes for longer term bits, and those kinds of things unfolding are usually things that are very challenging to me, or I wouldn't take it on as a long-term piece. And sometimes you succeed and sometimes you don't succeed. Or sometimes it takes, I don't want to admit to failure any more than anybody else. So, but it takes a while to come around to whatever it is a success. I worked with a woman in England who was an investment banker who just had no idea of the volcano that she was sitting on. And when that volcano exploded, I was out of my depth. She was psychologically coming out of a place that I had not in my, what did I say, Protestant guilt. I had not come across anything as twisted as this in my Protestant world. And she and I had to work together for several years. And she was not entirely free of her past by the time she got done, but she went and became a body worker herself, which from investment banker was a change, and represented her commitment into her healings. Yeah,
Right.
So
Beautiful.
it was successful, even though very, very difficult. Follow your failures.
Yeah, I
They're
like
there.
that. What has it felt like to teach this lengthy 12-week immersion training for potentially the last time in your career?
Very good. I am ready to let it go. It's been, I started teaching people in probably 95 to do this kind of work. Before that, I was just teaching anatomy. And from 2000 or so, we've done first the 10 sessions in KMI and then the 12 sessions in ATSI, but it's all been part of the same project as far as I'm concerned.
Big arc.
Yeah, which is to pass this along. And the whole thing has gotten much more sophisticated, good delivery, and it suffered from a lot of my faults in the beginning and got winnowed and weathered by people like Kelly and Lou and other people you'll never meet who made the training better for that. What was the question? Because I wanted to answer it.
What has it felt like? And you said it felt good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like the end, like the wrapping of the bow.
Oh, to do it for the last time. That was
Yeah.
the thing that I was missing out. Yes. I have really delighted in teaching beginners for a very long time. The idea of being subversive at the beginning about how people learn anatomy. What if you learned anatomy from holism first instead of learning the parts first and then adding holism on top? So I've been very glad to do that, but I now want to work with people who are 5, 6, 10 years into this work and know what they're about. So in this last part of my life, I think I will teach more of the advanced and less of the beginners. But to do this for the last time, to answer your question, it's really, or just to do this now, to see how coherent it is. God knows it still needs work. God knows it's not perfect in its delivery, but it's a good, solid piece of work. I'm proud of it.
I can say that firsthand.
Yeah, we found it to be a very solid piece of work, for sure.
So this is kind of a question I thought of this morning, and is there a particular area of fascial research that your colleagues are doing that piques your interest, but you haven't seen a lot of public interest in yet?
Yes, I would like to know more about the divisions of cells, which is not my field at all. I'm not a histologist, nor am I going to make this, but I follow this research with Peter Friedel and other people with interest because we've described a fibroblast, which is the generic cell. And then people are describing fasciocytes and other cells, and there are cells called telecites in the fascia that I really want to know what they're doing. I think they're doing something very interesting. They have big pseudopods. They're listening to large areas, and nobody knows what they're doing.
They're secrets.
They're secrets.
Fascial secrets.
Fascial secrets yet to be revealed.
That sounds really interesting,
Yes.
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. It piques my interest.
It does mine as well.
This thing, I mean, fascia people are acting as if it's something new.
It's been around a while.
It's something new for us to think about as a system, but everybody's been training fascia since they started training, and everybody's had their hands on fascia since they put their hands on people. You can't touch them without touching fascia. So it's only that we're learning more and therefore handling it better, but not that it was anything new has happened in the body.
Fascia's fresh.
It's fresh.
It's trending.
Yeah, you never had a vagus nerve until
Yeah, it's true.
Stephen Poor just pointed it
That's
out.
correct.
Yeah, didn't exist.
So, final question here. How do you see structural work progressing into its next evolution? And what is your vision for this most recent crop of ATSI students?
Well, I do think that structural integration and indeed society's relationship to its body are undergoing rapid changes. And if that, one of the reasons that I had to break with the Rolfing Institute and the other things before is Ida Rolf's sessions were really built for the bodies of the 40s and 50s, just post-war, and actually she cut her teeth pre-war, between the wars. And so did Pilates, and that waistline back and top of the head up and shallow spinal curves. That really came out of the biomechanical thinking of the 50s. And if we do that, we're preparing people for the 1960s, and I'm sorry, but they are long gone. So how are we preparing people for the 2030s is the question now. And sorry to sound like an old man bitching about the kids, but the society in general is marching away from its own body feeling at a fairly rapid pace, marching into their phones, into their transportation, into the constant entertainment that's being fed our dopamine systems now, and away from what movement produces, lots of movement produced in the body in every generation before this generation. So I think that the next generation of structural integrators is going to combine more movement, is going to take this into institutions where we haven't, prisons and schools and just all the different places where this kind of thing, in some different form, not in the exact form that you've learned it, but it will disseminate, the principles will disseminate out into the society. And I think it needs to, everybody who has a cause is going to say this, but I think it needs to, because the forces that are taking us away from our body and allowing the lazy genes to run things
Become dominant.
Yep. Well, they were dominant, and they should be dominant if you live in a place where you only have to move.
Right.
But now we don't have to move.
No.
And it's great to have genes that say, eat everything in sight when there isn't enough to eat. But when there is enough to eat, those are terrible genes to have. Yep. So we're in that genetic mismatch between having lazy genes and being able to be lazy, which we never could before. So I really do see this generation taking it into what is the minimum movement dosage that we need. We've done that with vitamin C. We've done that with vitamin C for scurvy and all of those things. You need a minimum daily dose to keep you from having rickets, diseases that
Not
are just no
recommended.
longer around because they were nutritional diseases. Well, we've now got a nutritional disease, and the nutrition that's missing is movement. The nutrient that's missing is movement, and it's simply being allowed to fall away. It's not necessary. It's not very expensive. There are very few downsides to applying movement. And structural integration is really just one part of a whole movement, the movement of that. I'm not the only one to recognize this problem of people having less and less movement as the generations move into electronics. I think structural integration is unique in speaking to where we are rather than what we do. So there are lots of things out there that will tell you what to do, and this is better to do than that to do, and we're not in that Well, actually, we're telling you there's a better way to stand. Stand like this, not like that. So I suppose we're just putting
But
another
we're
set.
hoping to expose that, if I've learned anything. We're not trying to impose a better way to stand. We're trying to help people embody that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you grow yourself into good posture, not imposing good posture on yourself. Yeah.
Right. We can't be more grateful for the time we spent with you and for today. It's been I've told you, 20 years in the making of me getting to learn from you, and being with you for this time has been pretty life-changing for me.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Attunement is everything, and we appreciate yours.
A free way to support this podcast would be to like, review, and subscribe wherever you're listening. This helps us get the word out.